you're listening to this and you're in my community, my hunch is that there's some area of your life where this can apply. So you have a template. You have a template for what it feels like to lead yourself. It is more work. It's uncomfortable because it might go against what you've been taught to believe is true for your whole life. But all the way in here, like it feels right. It feels correct. Okay, this thought has been coming to me all week, and I'd like to talk to you about it a little bit. So, we learn a lot about leadership growing up and what it means to exhibit qualities of a leader, to lead others, and effectively to be a guide, whether it's to your classmates or to your siblings. And then as you get a little bit older, to your friends or your coworkers. And what I want to introduce to you is what feels like this concept of leadership that has been left behind, something that we really haven't put a lot of attention to, but that I believe is going to be really important as we move forward into a new way of living and a new way of doing business and doing life and doing motherhood and doing all the things, right? This concept of self-leadership and what it means to be a self-led individual. And I want to share with you an example. I want to share with you how it shows up in business and also give you an example from what you may be experiencing in your life if you're a parent and how you can apply that to other areas of your life. I do firmly believe that we are being called as adults to step into a role of self-leadership in our lives. And also, I believe that the children that are coming into the world now, these babies and these little people that are actually people, but in little bodies, as my aunt says, they get it and they are learning. And how can we better walk the walk to show them a model of what it looks like for them to flex that muscle of being self-led? Okay, so let's dive in. So when I said earlier that this has been a little bit overlooked, I feel like the education system, the public school education system that many of us grew up with, myself included, we weren't really taught how to lead ourselves. We were very much told exactly when to do certain things, exactly how to do certain things. And there wasn't a whole lot of wiggle room or space for that leading yourself through certain activities, right? Example, and this is not to knock every school system and schedules and such, but if you notice, like when I was a kid anyway, our calendar, our daily schedule, I should say, when it came to class was like broken down by 15, 20-minute increments. Like we knew exactly where we were going to be and what we were going to be doing at exactly every minute of the day, which I understand why that is a helpful tool when you have a group of young children in a room, right? And also that conditioning and that program kind of sticks with you throughout life, right? Like you clock in at 8:30, that's when your workday starts. And we see this in the world of business. We see this in the world of doing business online, especially where there's a lot of leading people to do things on our timelines and not trusting people to lead themselves to their own correctness and to know what is correct for them to do and when it's correct for them to do it. Instead, what you see is a lot of people online that create arbitrary deadlines. And there's this belief in the world of digital marketing that if you create a deadline, you're creating urgency. And when you create urgency, people will be more likely to move and make a decision. And I've got some issues with this. I can see how people doing it believe that it's helpful. Arguably, sometimes it results in a lot more money and a lot more sales. I just don't believe that that is the kind of business practice that we want to take into a new way of doing business. It still has that old good old boys marketing vibe of creating urgency. Now, let me say too that this is different than actual real deadlines. Like if we're doing a live class and it's starting on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, and you kind of need to be there to practice or to do the thing or to meet with the facilitator, and there's not going to be replays available, or let's say there's a yoga class near your house at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday night, I don't know that they're going to be recording it. So like there is actually a very real timing thing with that. It's not urgency. It's just like, this is when it's happening and there's not going to be a replay. So if you're going to do it, this would be the opportunity to do it. I'm not talking about that situation. I'm talking about creating artificial urgency to encourage and kind of poke and push people to do something on your timeline because you want that thing to occur by the end of the month. You want more people to come into a program, or you want more people to purchase this thing by this date because you have a goal of X amount of dollars for that month. That's the thing that's starting to really irk me in the online space. The other caveat that I want to share is this feels different to me than like the energy behind something that's for a limited time only because it's fun. So when the energy behind it feels fun or joyful or like exciting, like this would be fun to mark this thing on sale, like something that example from my own business. I'm turning 40 in a couple months. And let's say I was like, oh, for my 40th birthday, how fun would it be for 24 hours on my birthday to do 40% off of a given product, right? Like that is fun, excitement, energy. To me, that feels very different. It's not like if you don't get this thing by that's different, right? So the energy behind creating false urgency to me feels like scarcity. And scarcity energy, when it comes to putting anything out in your business or honestly doing anything in your business, I don't believe that's the energy that's going to help us attract and vibe with the thing that we want, the thing that we desire. Now, might this mean a little bit less sales when it comes to like, well, if I don't create false urgency, then what? Are people just never going to come? No, I don't believe that to be true. I do believe that there may be a learning curve. So what I propose is that we learn and do the harder work, which is self-leadership. And we educate our communities of what it means to lead yourself, get in the driver's seat and take responsibility, and to move out of that old way of moving through the world that we were so conditioned to do from when we were little kids of like, can I please use the potty? Can I please go get a sip of water from the water fountain? Am I allowed to use the restroom kind of thing? Like, I think that kids know when they have to pee or when they're thirsty. Can we start to get back to that innate knowing that is in all of us and strip away some of the conditioning and some of the programming of like, this is how you need to do it. This is when you need to do it. And the thing about this is like self-leadership can be really uncomfortable at first because we're so not used to this. We're used to a different way of doing things. We're used to, if we want to join a program or if we're interested in somebody's work and we're like, oh, I love their work. And oh my gosh, they're offering this thing, but it's only good for 7 days. They're only going to offer this sale for this many days. And I better make a decision. I got to make a decision. I got to make a decision. This offer is only good for this many days. I have been on the other side of this. I have been the buyer and the consumer on this side of that dynamic. And let me tell you that the more evolved my understanding of business becomes, the less I appreciate those scenarios. I am a self-led individual, and I have been learning and flexing that muscle. And the more I do that, the more that false sense of urgency is such a turnoff to me. I know when I'm hungry. I know when I'm thirsty. I know when I got to pee. You don't have to tell me when the correct time to pee is. Now, clearly I'm not talking about pee, but you know, you get the reference, right? So what if we really start to revert to our innate knowing of what our correctness is, when the correct time is to do a thing? And what if we trust our clients? What if we trust our community to know that as well? I trust you. You trust yourself, right? You trust yourself to know when you have to pee. Can you trust your community to know when they have to pee? Instead of poking them on Instagram stories and saying like, hey, you better pee within the next 15 minutes or you're not going to have a chance to stop and go potty. I don't think we need to do that. Our communities are grown-ass individuals who can make decisions for themselves. And yet, okay, so let's move into an example. Many of my community tends to be a lot of birth workers because of my interest in the birth world, right? So if you're a birth worker or not, you can apply this to something else. Or if you're a parent, this example may really land. And if you're not, I just ask that you try to make adjustments or put yourself in this position to see what it feels like. So birth workers and parents, like there is this journey when you're preparing for labor, where some of the things you learn about in the labor process has these deadlines during the pregnancy labor process, that the person with the white coat says, this is the deadline. Something changed as of this moment. They made a decision. And collectively, a lot of pregnant people were like, okay, example, can you tell me that there is a significant difference between being as a pregnant woman, if I'm age 34 plus 364 days, there's a difference with the way my provider will talk to me and a difference in the conversation between that moment and the next day, which is the day I turn 35. Because suddenly when you turn 35, it's literally like within a 24-hour period, suddenly you're moved into a different classification called geriatric pregnancy. And I know this because I've been there. I was pregnant with my youngest when I was 34, and I turned 35 during my pregnancy. And suddenly the conversations changed when I was at my provider's office. I'm like, last week we were having a different conversation. And obviously I'm not a doctor. I'm not your doctor. I'm not a provider. I'm not your provider. All of that up front, right? But outside of real pregnancy complications, why, let's assume healthy, perfect pregnancy, no concerns, no issues. Why suddenly is there a change from age 34 plus 364 days to age 35? Why are we having different conversations within a 24-hour period based on this deadline that somebody decided? Now, I do get that certain things are statistically that I get that, right? But like in a very real, practical situation of a perfectly healthy pregnancy. So as a birth worker or as a mother who's informed and you're taking leadership of your situation. Now, birth workers are generally guiding new moms through this type of conversation, through this type of experience. Most of the birth workers listening are probably like, yeah, we'd be providing evidence and support and resources to talk to the parents, and not to like say, oh, that's BS, but to hold them through making their own decisions, guiding them through leading themselves, helping them lead themselves through something like that. And as the pregnant mom, you're like, wait, that doesn't feel correct. Something doesn't feel right. So suddenly you step into the driver's seat and you're like, wait a minute. Why was that different than this? Or that doesn't quite, this is what we're moving into, I believe. And it's already been happening for some time. A lot of pregnant folks are waking up. A lot of mothers are waking up. And we're like, wait a minute. This doesn't feel correct. Now, I'm not just talking about geriatric pregnancy and the shift within a 24-hour period. You can probably think of 15 examples within the next 30 seconds. Grab a pen and paper and you can write down all the things, not just from a doctor, but other situations. Maybe it's at your kid's school. Maybe it's at their sports activities. Like you can probably think of multiple examples where something that you're being told is the way to do the thing just doesn't quite feel right. And you're like, well, but I don't. And we're so used to being in the passenger seat of our experience, of our life, of our business, that many of us, it's that auto response. It's like a reflex where we're like, oh, okay. I don't think that that's going to continue that way, for lack of a more formal way of saying it. People are like, wait a minute, in a lot of areas of life, increasingly, I'm seeing more and more parents who are like, hold on, that doesn't feel correct. We're seeing more and more home births. We're seeing a lot more people talk about holistic options when it comes to healing the body. We're seeing a lot of people leading themselves through motherhood, through their own journey with their healing in their own body. And that self-leadership, Can you bring that template? So that's the template example that I want to give you, because if you're listening to this and you're in my community, my hunch is that there's some area of your life where this can apply. So you have a template. You have a template for what it feels like to lead yourself. It is more work. It's uncomfortable because it might go against what you've been taught to believe is true for your whole life. But all the way in here, like, it feels right. It feels correct. And you've learned to trust that. Again, your motherhood intuition has told you that, like, trust your mother intuition. Can you trust your intuition outside of motherhood too? Can you trust your intuition in business? Can you lead yourself in making business decisions? And this whole episode was really inspired by a DM, actually, that I had from a new person in my business school membership. We were talking about some private support options and just different things. And we had a discovery call. I was playing with doing discovery calls on Voxer. So instead of getting on Zoom for 30 minutes or whatever, I'm like, let's do a Voxer one where we can talk. I like to talk. Self-protected projector. It's a really fun portal. To me, Voxer is like a magic portal. Anyway, we're in Voxer together. I wanted her to experience what it feels like to talk to me in Voxer. And it was super, super fun. And then afterward, what was really interesting is I don't do a whole lot of follow-up. I know that there's business owners who are like, follow up, the money's in the follow-up. I don't believe that to always be true. Sometimes if it feels correct, I will reach out to somebody, but I don't have a protocol where I'm following up 3 times in the next this many days and I'm poking them and I'm doing weird stuff like sending them certain Instagram stories or tag. No. I trust people to lead themselves, right? When I didn't really follow up, she followed up with me a few days later and was like, hey, I just want you to know, I am thinking a lot about what we talked about, but I'm really uncomfortable because you haven't, like, put a deadline on me. You haven't told me I have to make a decision by a certain date. And I appreciate that. Like, I like that. This feels like a great, the message was like, this feels like a really great way to do business. I'm just not used to it. And it's uncomfortable in my system. And I was like, I know, but I trust you. I trust you to make your best correct decision. I trust you to lead yourself. I've seen how you and a lot of the other people in my community lead yourselves through how you educate your children, how you show up in the birth room, how you support your clients, how you make decisions about sleeping and breastfeeding and all of these areas that are really important in life. I trust you to know if and when it's correct for you to work with me and in which capacity, right? Because that was the thing we were talking about, private support versus the membership versus this, like what would feel most correct. And a lot of business coaches, and the way I was taught was to put the pressure, because it helps people make a decision. And it was disguised as, and it's still being disguised as, like, you do this to help people, to remind people and to help them make a decision. They don't need to be reminded that they want support in life or mentorship in business. They don't need to be reminded every single day they're thinking about their business. If you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, my hunch is that you wake up and at some point within the first hour of being awake, you're probably thinking something about your business. Throughout the day, even when you're not working at your desk, you're probably thinking something about your business. You don't need to be reminded. And if I've done my job, you know me, you like me. And if you're my ideal person, you want to talk to me. You want me in your corner in some capacity. And at some point that's correct for you. I want you to lead yourself. I want you to, ideally in a dream world, and this is what I think we're moving to, and what I urge you to do in your business is take a look around at these artificial deadlines that you have and ask yourself, is this coming from a place of scarcity? Am I doing this and creating this deadline because I fear that if I don't do this, people won't show up or people won't buy? I won't make enough money. I won't make as much money. If that's what we're doing and we're making more cash in that launch because more people joined because of the arbitrary deadline, was it truly correct for all of them? Or are they going to be the people who are like, damn, I bought that thing and I don't know if it was the right time. I may have wasted money. I've been there. I've been there multiple times. On the buyer side, it does not feel very good. And that's part of why I'm shifting so many things in business, in my business, but I'm also sharing with you because I hope to see this as a collective shift. Because I believe that where we're going is buyer-centered business. You're a buyer, I'm a buyer. And I don't want to be treated like that. That feels like shit. It sucks. I trust myself. If we're meant to do a thing together, I'm going to get in your inbox and be like, hey, I'm ready. Sometimes we have a whole lot of life going on. Our whole lives are not. See, sometimes I feel like business owners, we get this feeling that like our thing is the most important thing in somebody's life. And while it is so freaking important and the work you're doing is valuable as F, people have a lot of other life going on. It's not all about you. And I say that with love because I tell myself that too. I'm like, it's not all about you. You're not the most important thing in people's lives. People have a lot of very intense life happening that requires a lot of their attention. Your work is a beautiful, important addition and support system to their life. And also not the only thing that they're thinking about. And they know, can we trust people? Can we put that trust in other grown-ass individuals to know when something is right for them? Can we guide them and teach them how to do that? You're already doing it in birth. Can you do it beyond if you're a birth worker? Having said all of that, I have made some really serious changes in my own business. So for example, my business school, I used to only launch and open up enrollment during certain periods of the year. And I would have a launch. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that if that suits your energy type. For me, it did not suit my energy type. For me, it felt like I was doing it that way because that's what I was taught would result in more sales and more clients and in more money. Open a wait list. And then only when you feel like launching, you open the launch, you bring a lot of people in, you have deadlines. Otherwise, they have to be on a wait list. I don't like that. I don't like that anymore. I'm leaving it open. You can come in whenever you want. You can come in, join, enjoy the portal. There's courses, there's resources, there's live, effectively group coaching sessions twice a month where you can ask questions and get feedback on the work stuff you're doing. And you can basically pick my brain. Live twice a month. There's energy heal. There's loads of stuff in the membership. Pop in whenever it feels like it's your correct time. The arbitrary deadlines and the pressure of the deadlines just started to not feel so good anymore when I really looked at the experience I had on the other side of them. So having said all of that, the School of Business link is in the show notes and you can check it out. You can come in today. You can come in next week. You can come in when it's correct for you. And if you aren't sure what's going on inside the School of Business, everything's on the sales page. And I'm going to be talking more about our ongoing courses, programs, workshops, trainings, live sessions on social media. So you can follow along. And when it feels right for you, when it feels correct for you, I trust you to lead yourself to it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found value in what I'm sharing here. And if you did, can you do me a little favor and go and rate and review this episode? I will share a link in the show notes so that it's really easy to rate and review this podcast. It would mean a lot to me as this is truly a passion project. Have a beautiful day and I will see you next week.